half, because I don't know how much Barack is eating now, but I would do that whole chicken and then divide it by 4, so whatever it is. So when you're putting in, don't do small ingredients, try to do the meals, the parts of the meal. Let me show you how this works. So this table, those of you who gave me your Gmail address, you have this now. And this is yours. I can't see what you're doing. This is you personally. So let's say that I ate 20% of my carbohydrates for breakfast. Oh, come on, respond. Oh, view only, I'm sorry. Got it. Okay, I have to go back and change it. But if I could put in 20, and then I put in for lunch 20, and then I put in for dinner 50, because I had my spaghetti, then I would have a total. This would total this up for me individually. But then my husband also ate, so he would be my member 2. So let's say he did 4% of his for breakfast, 4% of his for lunch, 4% of his for dinner, and then he winds up having, for the week, a total of 12. But he ate some tomorrow and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So at the end, he has a weekly total. I have my weekly total, and it'll come up here. The way I've made this is that you can see what he types in if you are the person in charge of this table. Or if he's in charge, he can see what I type in. I would be member 2, he would be the person in this first category. So the numbers would continuously add up, and at the end, you can see how well your family did, because the next thing here is the weekly total for you and for each member of your family, and then this brings everybody's total together. And then it gives you an average of how you did on your carbohydrates. Did you have as much as you needed? Did you have more? Did you have barely enough, or did you have enough? And I have the recommended daily suggestion of carbohydrates. You can see that on the thing, on the nutritional website. And then you do the same thing for your fats. Lipids is a fancy way of saying fats. And you do the same thing for your fats, and then you do the same thing for your proteins. Now, I didn't talk about proteins too much today because time is at hand. That's another day. But you could do the same thing for your proteins. So with doing it this way, you can see you're shopping, you're planning your shopping, you're planning your menus out. We did great with our carbs. We can repeat that another week. We did horrible with our proteins. We may need to revisit that. And protein does not just come from animals. There's stuff called plant-based protein. There's some proteins that we can get from all plants. There's some plants that are a better source of proteins than animals are. So broccoli, that's green stuff called broccoli, really great. And in the book, I give you not the animal side, because we know how to get protein from animals. I give you the plant side of proteins in the book. There's a chart. So I'm encouraging you to look at that.
When you say
So
broccoli, you talking about those trees?
I'm talking about, so my husband and I had a joke. My first meal I cooked for him before we got married. So he didn't really know how I cooked. I mean, he saw some of the stuff I had been eating, but he didn't know how I cooked. So I cooked this dish for him, and it had a piece of salmon that was wild. It had a piece of broccoli. So I brought the plate into the dining room to serve him. He's like, "What is this tree doing on his plate?" And I'm looking at him like, "What do you mean a tree? How are you used to seeing your broccoli?" He's like, "The little florets at the top. Mine's had the stalk still, not the roots. I didn't go that far, but it still had the stalk on it, and he had to chew it. It didn't just like mush in his mouth, so he had to chew it."
But you can cut that thick skin off
You
of the
can
stalk.
cut the thick skin off
But
of
not
it,
in her.
but leave me alone. You can cut the thick stuff off, but the thick stuff is the fiber. That's your celery. That's what's helping to purge the stuff out of your body.
But can I want to plug celery for you. She just mentioned celery and broccoli, and also carrots. These
Yes.
three things, they keep in a cool place in your refrigerator fresh for a long time. So if you buy them fresh, and you won't be surprised how many times you go to cook and you be like, "I need some carrots, celery, or onions."
They say, yeah.
All three of these things, I keep them. You should keep them year round in your house. because they complement other dishes and they last forever.
His gardens, he has a garden, and he's grown broccoli, he's grown onions. I don't know if I've ever had any of your celery, but they grow very well in his garden, not in mine. I have too many butterflies, and so they keep dropping moths. Actually, they're dropping eggs on mine, and the caterpillars are eating mine, so I don't get the florets.
You don't have wasps. Wasps kill the caterpillars.
I kill the wasps because then they come out.
Don't kill the wasps because the wasps lay eggs in the caterpillars and they kill the caterpillars.
Okay,
they kill
that's
them.
a different thing. All right, now feast, we won't kill the wasps.
I used to kill them too until I discovered.
Well, he has bees now. Do they take care of it?
The bees are victims. So if there's too many wasps, they'll hurt your bee colony.
So
then you gotta control the wasps.
Yeah, okay. All right, any questions, any comments, any, yes, sir?
That question is, I've heard that when you cut an onion, if you don't use all of it, you shouldn't leave it open because it attracts bacteria.
The onion, I've heard that before, and I heard that in a microbiome class. It's amazing what vegetables will do with bacteria. The bacteria has sugar and other substances on it that the food has sugar and other substances in it. So when you cut it with all that moisture on the inside, that is a haven. We actually use potatoes to culture bacteria, and it does very well. So I would say any vegetable that you cut, even when I'm doing my ginger or my turmeric, I wrap it, I seal it in something. And I try to use glass containers as much as I can, because the plastic tends to hold, it's porous, and it tends to hold germs.
You told us about lemon juice one time, or fresh fruits and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Ever since you mentioned that, I do it and I put the fruit in the fridge. I usually just let it, because it gets soft and mushy, and you throw it away. But if you put a little lemon juice
Just a
on it
small
and put it in a Ziploc or something and put it in the refrigerator, it lasts a lot longer.
So you want to keep it closed, because the bacteria is in your refrigerator. It's in your house, so it's going to be in your refrigerator. So you want to keep it closed. Yes.
So I'm a walking onion because I either leave them half in there and eat them the next day. So I might I'm just. I got two questions. The phosphorus on the APPP.
Yes.
Can we get that in our system directly from eating food, or is that something that's
we make these?
Okay.
We make now. The phosphorus is going to come from your vegetables and your fruit. So that's potassium. That's potassium. So the phosphorus is going to come from the food that you eat as a raw material. This phosphorus is bonded with oxygen. That's why we call it phosphate. So it's phosphorus with 4 oxygens on it. So I'm inhaling oxygen. Some of my food has oxygen. The carbohydrate has oxygen that's going to be broken off. So I have this oxygen in my body. I have the phosphorus in my body because I've been eating my vegetables and stuff. And then I have ATP from someplace else, and I have these enzymes that are going to hold all that stuff in place. Here comes the energy. Stuff bonds together, and now I have my raw materials. And then my body has these locations where it says, all right, here's where we're going to put this together. So this happens to be put together in our mitochondria. Location that's perfect because it's got all the raw materials, it's got all of the protective things that need to be there. And I didn't talk about proteins. Examples of proteins are enzymes. So another critical thing that we need in our bodies. And I tell you where you can get the best place to get the raw materials to make the proteins. I'll give you a chart in the book itself too. So that, yeah.
And then the second part of the question was when you have like fructose or something. I remember reading an article about onions that for thousands of years that's how they treated diabetes until recent. So the question I'm asking is there an offset when you have too much carbohydrates or something and you offset it with another thing in the diet? Can they neutralize the system from working?
Yeah, cinnamon has been found to lower the glucose count in the person's blood. If you have fiber in your body, you can actually, I showed you with the stomach design, slow down the absorption of the glucose into the blood. If your pathways are open, so you don't have a lot of the bad cholesterol building up in your arteries and whatnot, that makes it easier to get everything through. So it's easier for the glucose and the insulin to get to where you have to go. if you've eaten the right, I'm trying to show you how all this stuff is kind of like intertwined. If you eat the right amino acids, you're going to make the right proteins, and you actually can make some of your amino acids, but then some you got to eat. So if you have enough amino acids, you're going to make the right proteins, you're going to have the right enzymes, and then the insulin's going to do its job right. The glucose is going to get broken down right. So it's all working together.
But your body will produce less insulin, like in the case with the onion, correct?
No, your body is producing insulin as it needs to. Okay, try not to make this too long. The pancreas is where the insulin is made. There's cells inside the pancreas called beta cells that will make the insulin. Your body can say, hey, we need some more insulin. Dunkin' Donuts, they just did something crazy. We need some more insulin. All right, so the insulin is made by the beta cells. But then that person goes to Dunkin' Donuts tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and they've been doing this for 20 years. And the beta cells are like, okay, I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to keep up, but the beta cells are tired. The beta cells are not as effective because they're constantly kicking out, and because that person has had extra sugar that they haven't been using because they have not been running a marathon, they've just been eating and doing regular stuff. That person is now going to have that extra sugar, even though it's glucose, not fructose, go in their blood to their liver. And the liver's going to turn it into fat too. So now the liver's run out of spaces to store fat because it's now good with fat. So the liver's overflowing with fat. It's still making fat, but now that fat's in the body, and oh my goodness, pancreas, I'm sorry, you're in the gut, right, next to the liver. Ooh, pancreas, you want to get some of this fat. And so the pancreas is now struggling because it has tired, overused cells, and then it has extra fat that's getting in the way. Person's been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
You got fatty liver.
And that's another
Fatty
disease.
liver.
That's another big, huge problem. Because that can lead to liver failure, liver cancer. And usually a person with fatty liver, not only are they getting their fat from their sugars that are turning into fat, they're eating high-fat foods too. So
What do they look like? Does it show up on skinny people? Or?
You can be
Oh,
skinny.
yeah.
You can be skinny. You can be skinny.
It's it's an imbalance, because
Yeah.
I've met skinny people that tell me they sick. I say, I ain't really sick. And they be sick. They be sick.
All right, I took 3 questions from over here.
Some
Yes.
fat people
We handling that business?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a
Doctor.
comment.
This is-
In regard, in regard to the fats, a lot of the fats now being genetically engineered. So when you're trying to get the healthy fats, you know, you still have to be careful because so much of the corn oil used to be like a very,
Good oil,
very,
yeah.
So now it's hard to get any corn oil that's not genetically engineered. And the other thing, when you do the searches, now the companies that manufacture these foods are now so powerful until when you do the searches, you can have things that come up first. I mean, you got 10,000 or 100,000, you know.
And then the real information is,
Yeah. So
yeah.
that was just
My recommendation, if any of you are going to do any fact checking, do a .gov, a .edu. Do not do a .com, do not do a .org, do not do a .Monsanto.
Because Monsanto will wipe you out. They behind all
And
this.
actually, unfortunately, Monsanto does have people on the Food and Drug Administration.
Oh yeah, they lobby, and oh yeah, it's serious. This is America, capitalistic country. This is America.
Largest contributor.
Yes.
When you say
Okay.
when you say green vegetables, you talking about any shade of green, not any particular, just green
The
vegetables.
darker the better.
The darker the
And I
better.
wouldn't just eat
What are
green.
some things that you would say that you would recommend that we would keep in our refrigerator that we could buy that's easy to put, that the whole family might eat it, and how do you incorporate it into your meals?
He
Now,
said trees.
I know salad.
He said trees. So I would
said
do.
broccoli and celery.
I heard this was my first year doing the.
I'm just curious. Do you eat a lot of green? You eat a lot of green vegetables. We want to know what you eat. So I want to put it in my refrigerator.
I eat what he doesn't eat. I usually eat it by myself. Let me start with this. The first year that I did this, there was a we had vending. We had the African marketplace. So a vendor came that had vitamins,
and supplements. And I gave him the floor and let him speak. He said, Renee, you might remember this. He asked, he said, how many of you have eaten something red today? Renee raised her hand. How many of you eaten something yellow today? Something white, something naturally red. Yes, no red dye number 5, exactly. Naturally red. And so Renee was raising her hand for almost, I don't know if you remember that. Oh, you don't. Okay, I'm sorry, put you on the spot. But she was raising her hand for almost everything because I had given them a snack. And their snack had all of that. I had some cauliflower, hello white. I had some red peppers.